Hey there. I am working on grounding and centering after a crazy drive this morning. There is dense fog, very dense fog, this morning on February 1st. Happy February 2024, everybody. February 1st. And dense fog is one thing, but not only is there dense fog, but it's 32 degrees outside. So when you have dense fog and 32 degrees outside, there's potential for that fog to freeze on the road and make it very slippery. So I have, due to several micro traumas with winter driving, I already have a hard time driving in the winter. What happens is if the roads aren't good, I have to practice really hard grounding and centering myself as I'm driving. Otherwise, I start to like disassociate and spin out of my body. I literally feel like I'm leaving my body and I'm like maybe hovering around somewhere up beside me, and that's not safe. I just don't feel safe driving on the roads. There's a lot of fear and anxiety, so it takes a lot of conscious work to ensure that I'm staying grounded and centered. And what it comes down to is, technically, if the roads are bad, I will either just not go where I need to go and I'll work from home, maybe even if it's just a couple hours until the roads clear up, because I just have a lot of trauma around it, for really good reasons. So anyway, my drive this morning, dense fog, and I was considering how I was like thinking of this analogy in my head, or not comparison, that's not the word, but I was considering how when things are clear, when there's no fog, when there's no cloudiness, it's so easy and so light to just get out on those roads and go. And I think that's like with anything in life, right? It's easy to be in the flow when your thoughts aren't clouded, when your vision isn't clouded. And what happens when our vision is clouded, like literally today with dense fog, but sometimes our vision can be clouded with events that are happening in our life. So when our vision is clouded, when my vision is clouded in dense fog, what's helpful for me is to remember to slow down. So I did slow down and I went 55, the speed limit's 65, so people were going 75. I went 55, I slowed down so I could see the next thing in front of me, which wasn't always anything. A lot of times it was fog. So I had to find my grounding points. So that's another thing too, when you're having a hard time gaining perspective. Oh, and it can be very scary. Whether it's fog or whether it's events happening in our lives, things can be scary when we don't know what's coming up in front of us, what's ahead of us. So I slowed down. I found some grounding points. So I could ground to the white line on the right side of the road and the center line, which was also white because it's a 2-lane highway. So I grounded to the lines on the roads. I also could ground to the exit points, right? Every now and then there's a spot where we might need to get off and take a rest. And I had those opportunities if I needed them. I knew I could pull off and take a rest. So I slowed down, I've grounded in whatever way I could, and I want to add to that grounding. So I also practice grounding in my body to prevent that feeling of spinning out. I practiced, feeling the steering wheel beneath my hands, feeling my seat in the chair, feeling my foot ready to slowly step on the brake if I needed to. Grounded into my body. Sometimes breathing can help me ground into my body. Well, a lot of times breathing is what helps me to ground, but when I'm driving and feeling like I'm spun out, focusing on my breath actually makes me feel more spun out. So that's why I focused on the physical sensations. Tapping, if you're not driving and you're feeling spun out, doing some EFT tapping can really help you to ground into your body. So those were some things that I did. Again, slowed down, grounded. I found some exit points if I needed to take a rest. The third thing that I did, well, actually that's 4 now, isn't it? What was the 4th thing? Oh, I communicated. everybody has hazard lights in their car, right? I call them my flashers. So thankfully the big rigs, the semis, weren't out on the roads this morning, and I'm pretty sure it was because of the dense fog. I didn't have any of those folks coming up behind me yet at that point, but there's more to the story that I'll get to. But when a car would come up behind me, as soon as I saw their lights coming up behind me, I would turn on my flashers. I wasn't going super slow, but I was going slower than they were, hence them coming up on me, behind me. And I communicated with them that, hey, and I know I'm a little ways up here, but I just want you to know I'm not going the same speed you are, so heads up. Heads up to maybe either you have a choice to slow down, or you know far ahead of time that you're gonna have to go around me. So I communicated. Okay, so I was considering all of those things in my head. Then I got to my exit, and for those of you who are familiar with the area, I was on New Highway 14, and the exit that I take is 39th, it's either 39th Street or 39th Avenue, which is a service road that gets me to Old 14, which will then get me to the roads I need to get to get to work. So the 39th Street exit, I was slow on, but it was wet, but it didn't seem frozen. So as I'm going along, I was doing about 40 because it is still very dense fog and I can't really see in front of me. So I'm still grounding to the white lines on the edges of the road. I think one was yellow now. Anyway, in that area, there are a lot of semis always because there is a big distribution center along that road. So there are semis coming and going all the time. I didn't I go past any that I was concerned about. And they all seemed like they were going pretty slow too, the ones that were on different roads than I was on, but I could see them on the roads. And then, for those of you familiar with it, there's that big hill that goes, it's like a big hill turns into a bridge. I think it goes over railroad tracks and then down. And as the hill goes down, it curves too. So I could tell, trying to, in my head, our memories can be fickle. They really can. So I'm trying to really ground in how it happened. I couldn't tell where I was at on the road. I was grounding to the white lines. But what happened was my car started to slip. And I realized then I was starting to go up that hill. I wasn't getting very good traction and I was moving back and forth. And that hill is like a bridge too. So I took my foot off the gas, and I had been going about 40, took my foot off the gas, immediately turned on my flashers, looked to see if there was anybody behind me, and there was, but they were a good car length behind me, closer than I would have liked them to be, but we were okay. They actually had their flashers on too, so they had noticed the road was slippery, and I just let off the gas as much as I could while still being able to get up the hill. And I noticed the car behind me pull over, and I thought, are they going around me? What are they doing? They can't go around me. We're on a bridge. And I realized that they had pulled over on a portion of the road where they had room to pull over, and there was a semi behind them. So as I'm going up this hill, trying to gain traction, knowing there's no place for me to go for the semi to get around me, I'm really then trying hard to ground myself. And at that point, my light language comes out to try and call me too. If you're not familiar with light language, I have other videos on it you can watch, but it's kind of like, it was like a prayer, but it was in my own soul language expression. So that was coming out of me. And once I made it to the top of the hill, again, I can hardly see anything, so I really don't know where I'm at on this road, but I could kind of sense I was at the top of the hill, because then I could sense I was starting to go down. I could sense that my vehicle was starting to speed up a little bit as I was going down, so I very carefully tried to not go brake as much as I could without really braking. The semi was doing great behind me. I was really scared and worried about him because he was only a car length behind me too, and I was hoping that he was able to control his speed going down the hill around the curve, because it was slippery. And so anyway, there were a lot of prayers coming through. And when I got down to the bottom of the hill around the curve, I could tell that the road was straightening out. This time I had much more control of his vehicle. I felt like I had more control of my vehicle, and I was practicing very hard grounding with my fingers and toes tingling at this point, because my body, when I'm spinning out of it, even though I might not be hyperventilating, that's what it feels like. So, bringing it back full circle, here I am in the parking lot at work as the sun comes up, and you can kind of see the fog is lifting a little bit behind me, grounding, centering, getting ready to go in and move forward with my day. Take care, everybody, and I'm praying for safe travels for all of you. Bye.